Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and today is the day of Black Tuesday. And it sounds like a strange, well, today is Tuesday, and it sounds like a strange title, but it actually deals with the Great Depression. This was actually brought up as an aside by one of our moderators, Dead Man, and I thought it would be kind of fun to take a subject which doesn't necessarily lend itself very well to tabletop role playing games, as this entire day of series is about, but taking it and twisting it and using it as fuel for our tabletop role playing, world building, and experiences. And I thought it would be kind of cool. And of course, this coincides with um, the day of Black Friday, talking about the day after Thanksgiving here in the states, and the mania, the the strange and even aggressive and violent nature of human beings as we try to become consumers. Well, this has to do with the same thing. This is about financial markets and Black Tuesday. So, for those who do not know, back in the 20s, there was about a 10-year period of financial despair known as the Great Depression, and during that time, especially here in the states, and it did spread worldwide. Financial markets collapsed. Now, in more often than not in tabletop role playing games, not only is economics not really a thing, but even if it does have an economic system in it, it's usually pretty broken and a little bit ridiculous. But we can substitute that for many other things when it comes to speculative markets and an interest in something that goes above and beyond a mere interest, but goes into obsession and even far more dangerous things, where humanity may rely on a particular resource, or society may desire, or even cultivate itself in a particular manner. And then when that is either removed, or that resource starts to dwindle, or that resource is uh, permanently or artificially scarce, or becomes so valuable that no one can afford it, and humanity has to start investing more and more of its time, energy, resources to obtain this thing just to get ahead in life. It can get pretty horrible. And we're also going to even talking about Black Tuesday and that event. We're actually going to go back a little bit further into Tulip Mania and the speculative market there, and how we can really twist it and use that and stick it into our world building and go, yeah, I mean, we don't have to use tulips or investing in the stock market, but it could be something in our fantasy role playing as simple as a strange blue flower, a mage stones that are harvested from the grand mountains that allow arcane power to happen, or it could be uh, things that have fallen from the sky, like a meteor or something, and there's a value in it, and people are trying to get collected. Here in the states, as the United States was settled, we've had that market happen in various industries across the United States as the states became what they are. For example, gold and oil, cattle, and the cattle and buffalo industry, the pelt industry of going after different kinds of animals, and I would say even so far as silver and tin, and those and coal industry as well. So when I hear this, here we go. I'm gonna make some nachos and have a beer. So I won't have much for a while. Hello, everyone. Yeah, there's a number of people here. You can shout out as well if you are, or if you're able to participate in the live chat on YouTube or Twitch. You are officially a co-host of the channel. So let's get into a little history and then get a little to a prehistory. All right, so October 29, 1929 is known as Black Tuesday. Now, around that time, there have been, if you recall, or from school or whatever, there were other black days of week during that time, Black Thursday and a Black Wednesday as well. But Black Tuesday, let's see. Oh, that's an image. People gathering in front of the stock exchange, and during this time, this is where your average citizens were able to invest. Um, there was a great push to have average citizens invest in the stock market because prior to that, during the Roaring Twenties, the the stock market was gathering momentum. It was hitting that bubble, and we today we know about bubbles, right? That the bubble starts to rise and rise and rise, and those that are riding on the edge of that bubble, on top of that bubble, really are able to maximize their investment opportunities. But we all know that the bubble bursts, and anybody sitting on top of that bubble or around it, when it bursts, everybody else suffers from it. So on October 29, 1921, the United States stock market crashed in an event known as Black Tuesday. This, excuse me, this began a chain of events that led to the Great Depression, a 10-year economic slump that affected all industrialized countries in the world. The 1920s had been a time of wealth and excess in the United States of America, and stock prices had risen to unprecedented levels. This encouraged many people to speculate that the market would continue to rise. Investors borrowed money to buy more stocks. As real estate values declined during the late 1920s, the stock market also weakened. When stock prices started to slide on October 29, people rushed to sell their stock and get out of the market, which drove prices down even further. This cycle led to more and more panic selling until the stock market fell to its lowest point in history. And that's just an overview. And very much in what we could actually absolutely pull into tabletop role playing is that human beings we tend to be herd animals, unfortunately. And what I mean by that is this was a real life. Let me give you a real life experience. So here in the Ohio Valley, in central Ohio, we have something during Fourth of July, Independence Day, known as Red, White, and Boom, and 500,000 people or more show up to our um, relatively large city, but it gets packed, and we have a huge fireworks celebration. Well, of course, that means lots of crowds and things. And unfortunately, we have individuals who like to manipulate the herd mentality. And so during this time, this actually happened last year, young people would just start running and screaming random things to make other people start to get a panic thing. And then everybody started running. And I had to myself and about a few dozen of us individuals, because mind you, this is with families. We have elderly, we have children in strollers and things. And if you start a panic run, people will get trampled, and the younger, the infirm would just get crushed in the rush. And people were screaming out like, "Oh, there's a gun!" and start running and panicking, and people start. And I'm like, and my mindset was like, "There's nowhere to run. There's too many people." And if there was something dangerous going on, running would not save you. There's no cover. And the actual smartest thing to do is the thing that works against us as herd animals is to go towards the danger. Pick up anything and everything you can, throw it at the individuals. You might have to sacrifice yourself, but that's it. And I was just like, we're not running. It doesn't matter if somebody's shooting or something. You can't run. All young people, the ladies, y'all get down, and we guys are just going to have it. There is no other option. There's no place to go, and I feel like speculative markets are like that. Some social media attention gets something, and then everyone else jumps on board, and they start panicking, and even people who don't want to panic begin becoming influenced by all the activity of everyone else panicking. And in a tabletop role playing game, imagine your world, not stock markets, mind you. That's and maybe that's taking a little too far, fantasy, but whether there is a famine or disease, maybe there's a desire for some kind of value, a gold, gemstone, things, and people are moving towards it. There is a uh, there are there's some kind of resource that is either running out in one direction or very valuable in another direction, and humanity starts flowing towards that, and that could really affect Major metropolitan cities in your fantasy realm start becoming vacant. Wild locations in your world start being built up. Side note: there was a television show called um, Dead Deadlands, Dead Zone. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, it was a settling of the U.S. kind of thing, and every episode, as people were coming for the gold, every episode, the small town just kept getting built onto it without any rhyme or reason, and then with humanity collecting in the area, they had to have laws, and then there were people rubbing up against each other because someone else would have a rival business because they were the only ones selling uh, digging tools to go after gold and such. And then a second business would open up and stuff. And you could really have this dynamic, like what happens when humanity drops everything they used to have and start moving towards this other thing or away from another thing, and influencing the player characters into, of course, protecting caravans or living in a region that starts getting overrun by humanity or humanity disappearing, and of course all the dangers when people try to travel or re reapply themselves in a new dynamic in a new world. Shai says your parents probably weren't old enough to have experienced the Great Depression, right? My grandparents were on the edge of it, but not my parents. No, and for there have been there's been a number of media that kind of expressed what the Great Depression was, but here in the United States, we had over 25% unemployment, which is it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's pretty damn dangerous. And when you have that many people out of work, suicides were very much at its highest at that time. There was a movie called The Cinderella Man that really encapsulated the pre and post Great Depression, where people were riding high during just before the Great Depression, and then everything just bottomed out, and it's pretty incredible. Um, Now I'm going to flow into. We're going to go into prehistory. So we're going to go for. We have our little historical thing, and then I want to go into a little prehistory and talk about one of the things that kind of encapsulates a speculative market. And this is known as this happened um, in the Dutch Golden Age. This is a tulip mania. For those who don't know, actually, the tulip mania was a spotlight a little bit in the movie. Um, oh wow, my brain just Michael Douglas, Wall Street, or the second Wall Street. Oh, anyway, it talks about tulip mania. So during this time, tulip mania was a period during the Dutch Golden Age when contract prices for some bulbs of the recently introduced and fashionable tulip reached extraordinarily high levels. The major acceleration started in 1634 and then dramatically collapsed in February of 1637. It's only 3 years. It's generally considered to have been the first recorded speculative bubble or asset bubble in history. In many ways, the tulip mania was more of a then unknown socioeconomic phenomenon than a significant economic crisis. It had no critical influence on the prosperity of the Dutch Republic, which is one of the world's leading economic and financial powers in the 17th century. And I believe that was due to uh, their ability to sail and travel to other areas and have great diplomatic and trade with other countries and things, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but anyway, the forward markets appeared in the Dutch Republic during the 17th century. Among the most notable was one of centered on the tulip market. And so the reason why the tulip market was a market itself was because as people who have money sometimes want to express to other people that they are wealthy and that they are successful. And one of the ways during this time was to have tulips. Tulips were at the time were rare, and they would only bloom at a certain time, and they were considered a very beautiful flower. So those who um, you didn't want to flaunt too much wealth with gold and jewelry, but you did want to show people that you were prosperous. So people would have tulips in their homes and tulip fields around their house, and they would wear tulips for on their clothing and things of that nature. Well, those who didn't have money thought it would be nice to have tulips. It kind of made you feel a little upper crust. So then those individuals wanted to get tulips. Well, eventually what happened is people started buying tulip bulbs before they even bloomed. And then it's the speculative market started going backwards after that. Well, I'll buy tulip seeds knowing that next season those tulips will bloom and I'll have those tulips to show to other people. And then it got even worse. Well, I'm going to sell you the promise of tulips that are going to be in the future if you pay for them. And then people were simply they didn't care about the tulips. What happened was the value of the tulips itself became more valuable than the tulips than the actual physical tulips. So people were investing in many bulbs and crops of them, and then in borrowing money to buy many of them so that they knew that because the value was going up. And so that's where speculative markets really start to shine. Well, unfortunately, Shai says a lot of the seniors I knew back in Michigan did go through the depression, and they tended not to throw moldy food away. Oh, not dude. In I remember my grandparents. Um, okay, they had this thing where, like you said, they didn't really trust banks, and so I knew my grandfather used to take old cans and stuff money in cans, and that's where the stuffing your mattress with money idea came from, because people didn't trust banks, because after the collapse, people couldn't get their money back out of banks. They just lost everything. That's where the FDIC here in the States comes from, where the federal government insures banks so that if there's a run on banks, so for those who don't know, banks don't carry cash. There is no one place that a bank has all of the physical money that the bank has in assets. It's all electronic. So if you go to a bank, movie wise, I'm going to go to a bank and take out $1 million. You really can't do that here in the States. That's all movie and television. In reality, you actually have to go to a bank and request that amount of physical cash, and they have to go out of their way to obtain that physical cash because it's all electronic. And technically, they've already taken your money and spent it on other things. It's been given out as loans. It's been invested. That money, when you give your money to a bank, the money doesn't sit there. It actually goes out and does other things for their benefit. And during people who have lived through the Great Depression, know they unfortunately have become very much hoarders and had a paranoia about them. Perfectly reasonable, right? I'm not saying it's wrong, but Shy Squad is saying here, like some of your grandparents or great grandparents who had these like weird quirks about them. My grandfather, this was a weird quirk. So rubber bands made out of rubber after a certain point will break. And he used to tie knots in the rubber bands. Some of the people with Great Depression used to save and hoard things, simple things, thread, buttons, um, uh, zippers, pots and pans, canned goods, keeping a pantry full. There were a number of things that I remember from that time. And you go like, you realize you can just go to the store and get more stuff, and they were just like, you don't know. um yeah, it's pretty crazy. That's where the hobo came from. That's where the hobo from the murder hobo comes from. People were vagabonds, transients, uh, hobos, and looking for work. And many people, mostly men, would walk streets and get on trains and travel from place to place. And my grandmother used to feed the hobos. They would clean her yard and stuff like that. She had a huge 3-story house, and If they worked for her a little bit, she would give them breakfast and a hearty meal, and they'd be on their way. Shai says, "Oh man, I remember the time I tried to cash $10,000. They went nuts, flat out refused, and acted like I was trying to scam them." Oh yeah, if you, I mean, it's crazy. The craziest place to be, a bank, which deals with lots of money, makes sense. Is like if you go there with one of these like high price, like unreasonable requests, like getting cash or cashing a big ass check or something like that. Yeah, they go crazy. My wife used to be work at a banking institution, and here in Columbus, Ohio, we have a neighborhood, and this is around the world, right? You have a neighborhood where you have um, a huge immigrant population, and some of them, in relation to an immigrant population, tend to be a little bit insular, saving more money, a little bit more cash savvy than they are as born and bred people from the United States. Until their kids get indoctrinated into our culture, but yeah, they would come with bags and sacks of cash from small stores and money they've saved up and things like that. Yeah, they would try to buy cars. They didn't like loans. So their community would get together and put money together, and they would just buy cars, mostly Toyota Camrys, and they'd buy cars for like 8, 10, 12, $15,000 cash, and they needed the cash to buy them. And the auto people come in, and my wife was just like shake her head because the bank didn't understand the community. And my wife would just shake her head like, this is the way people operate. And the banks are like, shit, we can't launder drug money. And they're like, no, it's not drug money. This is just people who just put stuff money in their mattress, right? So um I very much could see this happening in a, like, if your fantasy world is industrious, right? There are great trade routes, there's big mega cities, and people are living high on the hog, and then somehow an adventurer or a rival adventuring group um floods the market with gold and jewelry and treasure, and all of a sudden everything, the prices of everything skyrocket, because if you've got 50,000 gold pieces, that 3 copper for some bread starts to increase to like 5 silver, and now it's 20 gold pieces for a loaf of bread, and people can't afford that after a while. It's like, wait, like today you can't afford the houses and rent and everything because it's just skyrocketing. And it would be pretty interesting to see non-nomadic people having to travel and become nomads, carrying all their belongings, probably carrying, you know, 65% of their belongings they really don't need anymore, but they're holding on to it, and moving in waves across the fantasy realm, long, miles, leagues long caravans trying to go from one place to another because they heard of a greater place to be. Um, I think that would just be very cool, and a huge dichotomy between like the haves and have-nots. Those people that live out in the wild, the hermits, the travelers, the real nomads are out there, and they're probably looking at these city folk like, you need to go back home. And city folk are like, it's dangerous back home. Nobody has money. Everyone's backstabbing each other. Brothers and sisters are going at each other's throats, and we've got to leave. We got to get to this other city across the valley or whatever. And those people living out there and monsters and all that kind of stuff would probably take advantage. And also the player characters may hear about, I need to pick a good MacGuffin. Mage stones. They may hear about these mage stones and how the collapse of the dwarven economy because they've mined all the mage stones out, and now the council of 7 wizards who were taking these mage stones and giving them to their acolytes and things like that, and had all this prosperous power. They're gone. Maybe they've left. The wizards are like, "Oh no, you're done. Fine. No need to stay here." And dwarves are like, "Wait, what? Wait, hold on." And then the dark creatures that they were able to hold at bay, down in the mountain, now they're coming out because many of the dwarves have like left. So some are industrious and they're just like, "Whoa, all we do is dig and mine things. There's nothing to dig and mine here anymore. We're leaving." and then the other dwarves are like, there's got to be more mage stones down here. There has to be, um, and that kind of thing. I just think it would be a great disruption and a fun, like, you know, a fun aside to throw like real economics into a fantasy world, something the players don't have to put on their character sheets or anything, but that pulling, this vast wealth out of these old crypts and things and dumping it into society could very well disrupt the whole community. Let alone PCs going around walking around like, I'm going to buy myself a Staff of the Magi for 150,000 gold. And it's like, if you dump that much money into a community, it's like, it sounds good at first. And then you're like, ooh, um, it could be very much like those, the horrors of the people who win the lottery and they become like instant multimillionaires and then they're living in their old neighborhoods, and how many people come out of the woodwork looking for it, looking to have them donate money to a specific charity or help them in their business endeavors, or hey, don't you remember me from back in the day? I gave you 5 copper and you went on to become rich. I think I deserve a cut of your money, such like that. The tulip, going to the prehistory of the tulip mania, there may be something like like let's use the tulip as an example, a flower or a seed or maybe a pet like a bird or a small marsupial or something. There may be a gemstone or something that represents a upper crust, a higher class, and if you have this, you are given, maybe it opens the doors for individuals to allow their children to be enter into these bardic colleges and such, or it allows people to advance in a social strata that normal people aren't able to move up and down in, and then that becomes a value unto itself, much like in today, why uh, doctors and lawyers and corporate individuals dress and drive around in expensive cars and dress in expensive clothing to show to other people, I am successful and so can you. Right. And we could use that in our own games because sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. So there may be people who really are very good at what they do, um, magi, warlocks, things like that, that are can promise your average citizen that they too will become rich or famous or immortal or magical or whatever. And because they wear an onyx pendant, it proves to other people that yeah, they've made it. Well, you know, a farmer, or farmer's son might be like, I'm not, hoeing these fields anymore. I'm going to pretend to be one of these people so that one day I can be one of these people. And finds himself, spends all his hard-earned money to get this onyx pendant, puts it on a nice clothing, and goes into a big town and city and starts schmoozing and maybe a little bit of a con artist, a little conniving or whatever, and to get people to their side. And everyone knows that if you have the onyx pendant, um, uh, they are able to beseech the voices of those from beyond our realm to give of them vast knowledge that could never be obtained by mortal minds or power or what have you, whether that's true or not. And especially if it's true, kind of cool, right? Like if you got an onyx pendant, spirits from the ancient past and far future will visit you, a la like banshees or ghosts or something. And these zero level human beings might be some trouble for the player characters if they're surrounded by ghosts and banshees and shadows. And I'm trying to think of some other Dungeons and Dragons monsters that may be out there as well. The mania of FOMO, the fear of missing out, could also be again a little bit uh, of mischievous fey creatures and such. I mean, the old classic story of the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow and people trying to find it might be true in a fantasy realm and cause people to um, leave their farms and leave the monuments they've been building and leave the industries that are very necessary to keep people fed and protected and alive. If the all the blacksmiths and the weavers and the ink makers and the all the artisans start leaving because of for one reason or another, that can really shut down an economy in a major metropolis. Small town, maybe not. They'll find somebody else to do it. But in a major city, where skills tend to be centralized, where guilds tend to hold all the knowledge, if they start leaving because of a lack of a resource in one region and a preponderance of another resource in another region, whether it's true or not, it can set things um, aside. And of course, you got to have we have to be able to murder kill things, right? In our fantasy realms, we have weaponry. We're armed for battle. We need to go out there and use that. And if you've got a huge population moving across wild countryside, that you're definitely going to be able to recruit a lot of player characters to say, "Hey, listen, we need." Whether these people realize it or not, they need to be defended. And it it may be extremely dangerous to cross a region, but people are doing it anyway, hoping to survive by sheer number. That the more animals in a herd, the greater chance the herd individual members can survive just based on percentages of other victims in the herd being taken down other than the ones in the middle of the herd. So if you're just a family of five, you'll probably be pretty much destroyed if you go through a dangerous wilderness. But if you're a community of 5,000, your chances of survival rise individually. Now, group wise, there's probably a lot more victims, especially those that fall behind, the ones that go off the beaten trail, the ones who just suffer more losses, those who get lost, those on the outside of the caravan or something like that. Yeah, exactly. Shai says, "We have to be able to murder kill things in our fantasy world." Yeah, unfortunately, many of them are battle emulators, right? It says, so the impoverished masses in the fantasy Great Depression turn into marauding barbarians and you have to mow them down. That's possible too, right? Like, people we know, um not just based on our post-apocalyptic storylines where the moment society breaks down, people just turn to their base. They lose all their humanity and they turn into their base selves. The same can be true for in fantasy, right? Maybe a gilded age of sorts in a major city becomes extremely bloodthirsty and barbaric, and unfortunately the player characters are like, oh damn, like we thought this was like a major metropolitan area where it was safe, and they come back and it's wrecked, right? And they're just like marauding families running around with feral children and parents that have basically murder killed their neighbors and have psychologically and or physically transformed into something else. Um, Heck, who's to say that this tulip mania of sorts that causes a crash in and of itself is what causes the propagation of monsters, right? So maybe maybe I'm trying to think of another MacGuffin, a flower, a seed, a nectar, or something. Since I'm flowing around this flower natural thing, maybe it starts to transform people. The Druidic circle that has always lived outside the city, and people think they're just dirty nomads or something, some dirty tribalists or something. They're going like, no, we cultivate these flowers for a specific reason, and we're the only experts. But you know, city folk, they don't know what they're doing anyway, and they start bringing it in like spice melange, snorting it up their noses and whatnot, and without refining it or beseeching the spirits of nature to bless them, and now they start becoming lycanthropes and hags and um, what's a all the monsters that have human faces but monstrous bodies, like manticores and harpies. Yeah, Naga fit in there. There's a bunch of other things with human faces and monstrous bodies. Although you can make up your own. right? I mean, who's to say a displacer beast doesn't have a human face on it, and maybe some sharpened teeth and all the tentacles off the shoulders and whatnot. What's some? I think no, I think the chimera is goat, dragon, lion, but you could make it anything you want, right? I mean, shit, you could just put a friggin' human head on the chest of a giant monster and leave the rest of it the way it is, and just leave, right? I mean, there's nothing stopping us, and it could be the true corruption of a place. Like speculation of wanting to desire something so much. This is the physical representation of you. Oh, you wished for it. Oh yeah, you got your wish, and the the greed. I mean, again, we can flow into like the deadly sins version of fantasy, where people who are jealous or envious or wrathful or greedy, slothful, become the physical embodiment of what they've been trying to desire in the first place. And I could see like demonic creatures, fey creatures, kind of going like wiping their hands at the thing. Like you wanted this. I'll give you what you want. You are the one who's going to suffer or be blessed by the thing that you desire. Right? Like it may be, it might not be something that automatically punishes people. It may just be we have something here we can give you, or we know access to it. Let's see what humanity does when they have access to the thing. And maybe honor and justice and temperance and passivity and um uh, caring for people and such. Maybe you will be blessed by it if you find this resource. If you are that kind of person inside, like, oh, I only want this resource to help other people, and maybe that person does become the embodiment of that goodness, whereas the other people were just like they're I mean, human or monster, people just shrug their shoulders like, yeah, I kind of thought they'd be like bloodsuckers, because they really are. Yeah, Drew says, yeah, yep, want to buy some shimmer from our for Arcane? Yeah, yeah. Arcane's an excellent example of a. I mean, well, first of all, Arcane is brilliant. Period. So let's get that out the way. But the shimmer, right? Like our favorite bad guy in Arcane, in a way, as a side story, we see him getting corrupted by the shimmer, not just because he was taking a little bit of it, but using it as a financial incentive to try to raise up the status of the people in the lower city. And really what he was doing is it was doing the opposite. He was turning these people into yeah, is yeah, yeah, shimmer. It's like magic weed, man. Yeah. Yep. Monstrous beasts with human faces. Politicians? Pretty close. Yeah, they're just bloodsuckers. Now they're a vampire. Like, yeah, I figured. Yeah, I mean, not much different. Right? But like, yeah, Drew, yeah, Shimmer basically turned into a drug dealer, drug lord. Even though our father like bad guy was saying like, no, we're doing this so we have at least some kind of power and influence to go to the upper city of Piltover. Right. Um Also, the what's the other uh, uh, um um the hex tech, the material that was used in the hex tech in Arcane could also be considered. It's Although it wasn't widespread throughout the city, like people didn't know of its existence, but that hex tech was to be able to use those magical stones or magical energized materials to achieve great things. And if that is able to, um, if the average citizen starts talking about that and contemplating what they would do with it and how they would use it and in what ways. I mean, imagine. Let me use my mage stone analogy. So we already know that our player characters are the adventuring type, and they're going to go into these dark areas of the world and murder kill things and try to not to be murder killed to find it. But if your average citizens are like kind of following behind our adventurers and going like, well, if we get mage stones, we could become powerful and everything. And the PCs are like snatching out of people's hands, like, you don't, that's dangerous. You don't want to touch that. They're like, yeah, we do. Like, no, 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 no. You don't want to touch that. And all of a sudden you've got your proverbial zero level humans becoming just more powerful or greater or whatever, um, without control, maybe becoming like Murder Hobo, becoming a dark reflection of terrible acting player characters, right? The zero level human who's like, well, I've got a magic missile. I can just blast people to death, right? And, the player characters are like, I could murder kill you right now. And they're like, are you going to do that? Uh, Drew says the crystals from the hex tech are based on exploration of other sentient beings, at least in the larger League of Legends lore, which I'm not familiar with. Maybe we will get to some of that in the next season. Hopefully, we will, because we got to see a little bit of it, of the character that was a young child, whose mom died and in the frozen waste or something, and that mage saved them and transported them to safety. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was a look at the prior League of Legends lore, and then it just came into the future. So we may be able to get more of that, like Drew mentions. And I didn't realize that it was based on like other sentient beings, that the material, that's where it like came from or originated from. But who's to say, right? Like, I'm trying to think of something. In the ancient past, the Illithids, the mind flayers, um, tried to, they came from the dark reaches of the distant space and time, and they came here and they died and they left behind their psychic crystals that can grant people great power or something. And humanity is like, woohoo! We found this stuff and we can buy, sell, trade it, and make it, holding on to this, I can read minds or move things or whatnot. And the player characters looking around like, wait a minute, your average people have like powers like us? Like we can't be outdone by zero levels. And they're like, oh, they're not zero level anymore. They've got actual hit points, double digits even. And the PCs are like, wait a minute, they can't have that. They have something higher than a +2. I'm being facetious, but you get my point, where this could be a problem for player characters as well, meaning like, the people they deal with on a regular basis, third parties that are getting involved in a thing that they really don't have experience with, might be able to disrupt things. A gang of zero level humans with pitchforks is no big deal to most player characters, but if those zero levels start creeping up in power, they become, CR level single and double digit adversaries, not necessarily enemies, but adversaries. Players may realize like, oh man, you know, uh, I don't know, a street gang that when they use the crystal, they turn into trolls and ogres and minotaurs and terrorizing this metropolitan city, and the authorities start using it, and they turn into, I don't know, elementals or I don't, whatever. And then it's really start getting out of hand, which also could actually describe a gilded age of an arcane city and why they have so much power. Um, but it could also be their downfall, especially if the mage stones only last a certain amount of time, and the dwarves that have been mining their mountain for it are like, uh a dwarven king and queen, I need to let you know something. Like, we are really low on those mage stones that we've been mining, and they're like, oh, no, 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 no. The only reason they leave us alone on the Five Kings Mountain is because of those mage stones. They're going to riot if we don't keep extracting more of those. And I'm like, yeah, this mountain's kind of like Swiss cheese. There's no more. Um, also, um, if we get into speculative markets in the first place, this could be a kind of a warning for player characters, um, to not flaunt their wealth and their power because of so many greedy faces in and around your fantasy realm. that when a player character shows up to a tavern and dumps out a dozen or more gold coins, everyone may look up and go, "Ooh, where'd they get that from? How much do they have? Where can I steal it from?" And stuff. I remember in our old BX games, Magenta Box BX games, when we started, we didn't think anything of economics. We just thought of it as real life. Like, if you're walking around with sacks of gold, people are going to steal it, and or not even just steal it, but like beg you for money or pretend like they are lost long relatives or want you to support their own nonprofits or tax you to death. you know Try to pull you into the upper crust of people, try to get you to invest in various types of guilds and businesses and things. And we used to have that over and over again in our games, and to the point where a lot of players just never even wanted to come to town to spend the gold, because it was just annoying to be bothered over and over, because we just thought it was like real life. We didn't get we didn't think anything of it. But yeah. Uh, Also, Black Tuesday, leading into the Great Depression, signifying the Great Depression in many ways. Um, if your players are invested in some of your NPCs, maybe some of your NPCs lose everything, and they don't want to beg the player characters, but they're like, "We need your help. Like, I can't feed my family now." Um, some of the staples that the players know when they go back to town might be gone or closing shop. The classic tumbleweed. I know tumbleweed is it, it, the tumbleweed is often replaced by newspapers blowing through, basically errant trash and newspapers and weeds growing up through cracks where they shouldn't be, like highways that have like dust and trash and abandoned cars on them in post-apocalyptic settings. Some indication, simple indication to show that a place is abandoned. You always see the wind blowing through and a piece of paper just curling in the wind, and no one bothering to pick up the piece of trash. And that's very simple. It's a very shorthand to tell people, like, this is empty place and no one really cares and no one's keeping it up. And that might be a great way to, of course, have player characters do exploration, figure out what's going on. And though, like uh, you were saying, talking about, where is it? Yeah, impoverished masses and fantasy Great Depression, turning them rotting barbarians. Yeah, it could be a thing. You know, like, we didn't want to be cannibals, but there's no food left, and we don't know how to farm anymore, and blah blah blah. I mean, that's always a big thing when it comes to major cities, right? Major metropolitan cities. Once you start taking people out from there, the rural areas, from the farming and the fishing and surviving off the land, and bringing them into major cities, yes, they start learning service industry and mechanics and with gears and steam and such. But what if that collapses? All those people in the Gilded Age, the nobility, they don't know how to survive out there in the wild lands, and they might be very well taken care of. Yeah, Shay says, "Isn't losing everything one of the funniest scenarios you can have in D&D?" Yeah, well, they don't really let you lose anything anymore. Remember that bag of holding and that +3 longsword? They're gone now. Time to scavenge up a bone dagger and a piece of wood. Yeah, hunt and gather, a D&D adventure, learn to farm. You know what? That's really, this really encapsulates this comment real, right? This really encapsulates why people love Dark Sun, survivalistic games, why so many OSR, or I guess NSR games, are getting a lot of attention, like Cairn, um, Torchbearer, Five Torches Deep, Shadow Dark. What's Milton's game? Questing Beasts game. Oh, not Mouse Guard. Maze Rats. No, no. Come on, brain. Work here. Um, Knave. Knave second edition. Woo! I figured it out. I got it. I got it. Almost had to squeeze my ass cheek on that one. Anyway, it's an old joke. It's an old comedian's joke. But yes, sometimes the the act of just being able to survive another day is in and of itself the reward for many role players. It's why people play Call of Cthulhu and survivalistic games. And current fantasy Dungeons and Dragons has done away with all of that. You can't get lost, you can't get hungry. Um, you know, the unintended consequences of basically not having to worry about survival in and of itself, and of course taking away any long-term drawbacks. Very few things take away anything a player character has, and everything's moved into player character advancement rather than. It used to be that a fighter didn't really get anything. A fighter actually became a character by adventuring and going out and acquiring these strange, weird objects through adventuring, and that would help them. Now, a player character with no magic items can decimate uh, um a place because of all the power that they have within them, rather than needing to acquire equipment and such. I mean, the equipment list, to be honest with you, after like first to third level, is pretty useless now in fantasy. There's no need for 10-foot poles or ladders or chickens or ball bearings or candles or anything like that. Yeshai says, better make your agriculture skill check on that seed sowing attempt, or else you're going to starve. Um, well, not that that wouldn't be a bad role playing game, but you know, you don't necessarily have to go that deep into it. But absolutely, some form of resource management, and some people just even bringing up resource management, they just roll their eyes, which is fine. Because I love a cinematic game. I love myself cinematics in general, and you know, sowing fields and hunting and gathering berries and nuts and stuff like that isn't very doesn't make your character seem very heroic, but it's kind of cool. Drew says, for me, drama is always more interesting than the mere survival stuff. Yeah, but you guys know that about me since I rarely shut up about that. No, you're fine, Drew. And listen, there's a space for everybody, right? And yeah, Chai says Goodberry is just a myth in this fantasy world for charlatans to exploit the foolhardy. Yeah, Goodberry. Eye roll. Um, but yeah, like Drew brings up, like, what's the game? Shit. Um, it's one of a number of games of Powered by the Apocalypse and Powered by the Apocalypse side games. Um, Monster of the Week, Thirsty Sword Lesbians. What's the is it Masks? Uh, kids, super powered kids in high school. Um, Monster Hearts. Ooh, there it goes. Monster. I knew I'd get it. A number of these games are based around. They are resource management, Drew, but they are based on resources of drama rather than food, gold, magic, or something like that. Yeah, Constitution check to dig 10 million rows of beans. Yeah, there've been plenty of people who've been succeeding and failing on those con checks. Backbreaking work. Whew. Better make that intelligence check to get that irrigation system set up. Yeah. Hey, I've got an 18 intelligence. I'm going to make an aqueduct. Right? But but yeah, the drama games are based on like through success or failure, you will acquire like um anger and spite and jealousies and things like that, and it has a mechanical effect on your character, whether you um retain that emotional state or get rid of that emotional state. Pretty interesting, and pretty interesting too. I kind of like it because it run it runs it threads the needle of a game master telling a player how they're supposed to act, and a player just making it up on the fly. It kind of threads the needle like, no, here's a mechanical effect of your character being jealous, right? Like jealous is a actual condition or something. Shai says, how about a Dust Bowl RPG where the crops all blow away during the fantasy Great Depression? Yeah, oh, yeah. Okay, I guess Dark Sun already is pretty much exactly that. Kind of, unless you start role playing the beginnings of Dark Sun. Like, who's to say that the world? Remember, Dark Sun. The past of Dark Sun was that it was a lush green environment. Um, and let's see if I could find a map. Let's see, map of Greyhawk. Let's see, Barrier Peak. So let's get some images here. See if we can find this. Will it let me see this? So the where'd my brain go? I lost my brain. Oh yeah. So the transition phase of Dark Sun, that's our fantasy Dust Bowl. I would say that. I would say that. So for those who don't know, um, Dark Sun is a world in which all of the um, um, how do I explain it? The here's a good picture here. Yum, no. Come on, fantasy. I That's the best picture. All right. So for those who don't know, Dark Sun is a setting. Most people know it. Dark Sun is a setting in which the the dragon kings, dragon lords, or whatever. Anyway, they are corruptors, and they drew power, life literally out of the world, and it turned the place into a big giant dust bowl. And um, on this map, I tried to pull it up here. There's different ones, but on this map, I guess it's hosted at XCOM. Somebody put it on X or Twitter or whatever. Down at the lower left of this map of Greyhawk. So this is a hex map of Greyhawk, and it has all the different places of ancient Greyhawk. And down here was this unexplored area, and very few people realize that this unexplored area actually became the northeastern corner of Dark Sun. So if you travel through these Barrier Peak Mountains and other things like that, that this area was magically annihilated in a cataclysmic event, and that eventually became Dark Sun. Now, Dark Sun became its own world and had no relationship to Greyhawk, but initially that's what it was. You were able to What their plan was, you could buy Dark Sun and push the maps up against each other, and it would just fit. And my old Dark Sun maps overlap each other like hex wise, that just explore different regions. And if I'm not mistaken, I no longer have it, but you could actually put the Dark Sun map up against the corner of the Greyhawk map, and it would just fit together, which is pretty cool. They stopped doing that, but pretty cool. The Sorcerer Kings. Thank you. Oh, Jesus. My brain just keeps farting. Shy Squad says Dark Sun, where magic is bad for the environment, so you gotta pay tribute to the overlords because they are like totally going to use that money to fix the environment. I love fantasy. Wait, that's not fantasy. Yeah, exactly. Wait, hold on. Because they're totally going to fix everything, right? Yeah, yeah. um, uh, since we were talking about the Great Depression and Tulip Mania, that's getting a little too close to realism too, right? Um, but I like pulling these. I want to take. I try to stay away from real life. I'm sorry, present day situations, but it's too easy. It's low hanging fruit. Um, but yes, having a fantasy realm that is always shifting and changing, and having player characters affect the world. Like, I mean, hell, you can see here how I'm broadcasting. I've got this darkness in the background. I don't have lights on. It's kind of emblematic of this Black Tuesday that I'm talking about. That's why I've got like a black vest on and a black t-shirt. I don't even have one of my colorful headbands on, and it's a little bit depressing. And it would be pretty interesting for the player characters to have either caused or created or knew or were in part of a pretty depressing event that casts a shadow physically, literally and figuratively over a major part of your world where the economics goes downhill and there's famine and people can't eat and things like that. Yeah, Shai says, yeah. So yeah, so do I. This DBJ, so do I. I was just joking. Current events in your fantasy world is Tetsubo territory. Yeah, yeah, yeah. For those who don't know, there was another not what well there was another YouTuber who very much used current events and commingled them in fantasy as well. I try. I'm trying to consciously stay away from current events because people get triggered so easily now. I mean, everyone's got like hair trigger, um, very sensitive, go off, love it or hate it, black and white. There's no nuance anymore, and so I try to stay away from that. But from ancient, from his, we can learn a lot from our own history and use that in our real world. And having it doesn't necessarily need to be economic, but it could be a resource downturn. Goodberry is a perfect example. A community that lives off of good berries that no longer have them, how do they eat any longer? Do they still know how to farm? If they start trying to make deals with a neighboring community that does have farming, maybe the neighboring community is like, you never gave us your green good berries, so why should we give you our grain and food? And we've got orchards and wines and things. You never wanted any part of that, so hell, forget you. Or maybe that community says, we would love to help you, but we will all starve. We don't have enough food to feed everyone. Um, that simple thing of good berries and no more good berries, and who's to say those, good berry addiction, good berry, the PCs have come here all the time to stack up on good berries, and all the orchards of good berries are dried up and they're dead, and now it's just being patrolled by strange predators that were feeding off the good berries and whatnot and stuff. Like, I mean, you could have some really great fun with that. So yeah. Yeah, but a Great Depression fantasy scenario is a great idea. Practically a must, with a Dust Bowl too for good measure, and a coal miners' rebellion. Yeah. For those who don't know, the United States was actually racked with a. You know what? We'll do Dust Bowl tomorrow. We'll maybe this is a travel log of the United States history, some of our bad moments, and what a strange but cool. That's what already decided. What we're going to do is we're going to take the development of the United States, all of its good and a hell of a lot of its bad, from rail industry, coal industry, gold mining, buffalo industry, the Dust Bowls. We're going to do all of that. Maybe some genocidal indigenous people stuff too. But yeah, let's do a travel log of American history, of United States history, and how that's worked out for us in various different ways, and pulling from that. Heck, we might even call this like we might call our fantasy realm Merca. Let me see if I can spell this out here. Apostrophe Merka. Merca. Yeah. Drew says, funny thing, I guess I triggered Tetsubo many years ago when he still made videos so that he blocked me from his channel. Really? You triggering someone there, Drew? I can't imagine that. I'm picking with shit. Yeah, I don't get triggered too easily. So wait, do they even have D&D, Cole? We're gonna make it up. We're gonna make it up. Yeah. Shai says, oh wow, yeah, this is funny. Yeah, yeah, I've been yeah, Gorka America. By the way, he still makes videos every single day. He just fell afoul of the almighty algorithm. Oh, fell out. Yeah, because I don't. He doesn't show up at all. Hell, that's why I don't show up anywhere. Anyway. Gorka, America. Hell yeah. Well, I love the idea of RPing economic disaster, role playing stuff like Lime famine, disease, minor strike, stuff like that is amazing. Yeah, I think we're gonna do that. Like we'll get into um, for those who don't know, many of the small communities that made up a lot of the United States were these small, like minor community, coal mining communities, and warehousing communities, and factory communities. And they used to. I need to find the term for it, but you would earn community dollars, and when you would be paid in these miners scripts. And unfortunately it wasn't actual legal tender outside of the community, and it was how these these um, labor camps were made against the citizenry, because you would earn money and you would spend that money. It would just roll by, right, because they would own the community center, they would own the housing, they would own the stores, and you could only spend the scripts that were given to you at these places. You could never earn money to leave. And it was company towns. Yeah, they were called company towns and company stores. I forget what the money was called. Yeah, I can't remember what it was called either. But yeah. So we could be like Jerka America. Yeah. Yeah. Dante says, "Hey, I made it. Long one today. It looks like long one. Long one. You're missing out, dude. These are hour-long things, dude." But hey, for those of us that don't have our head in the sky, uh, literally, we down here on Earth are still doing our world building. We're still doing our day of series, and we're going to get into that. Yeah, Drew says it feels like barely anyone from the old RPG Brigade days is still around. True, true. Hell, even the guys from Absolute Tabletop, who kind of broke off from the RPG Brigade, are kind of like not quite doing what they used to do. Yeah, something like that. So yeah, it was like company credit. Company credit was a thing that you would earn. You'd work in a coal mine, come out of the coal mine, earn go to the company store, earn company credits. Had you spent company script, spent your money at the company store, and then if you wanted to move away, you didn't have legal tender to buy anything else anywhere else. Yeah. Sam Y7 is still around. Yeah, and we had a falling. He doesn't even realize it anymore. But yeah, he blasted me one time on like Facebook or something like that. Sam Y7, because if I'm not, and this isn't a diss on him, he self-admittedly has psychological issues where he goes like, he has mania phases and upwards and downward phases. And like we had we are going through some conversation or something, and then he just laid it out on me like "F you, blah 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 blah," and I was like, "Really, dude?" And then it was just, yeah. Anyone remember Knights of the Dinner Table? That was before YouTube became a big thing. Um, Knights of Last Call right now is one of my favorites, even though I don't always necessarily agree with everything. Um, yeah, Shai says, but yeah, DBJ's he's the only true brigader with a daily show. Because I'm old, and you know what I mean? Like, I'm still the guy that uses the same toilet paper and the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I'm not going anywhere. Um, but yeah, and of course, Friday we're gonna get into back into Obsidian Portal. I mean, Obsidian Portal. Damn, Obsidian Star. Damn, couldn't even remember the name of my own fucking thing. Oh, and I did some modifications on I did some more modifications on the Obsidian Star character sheet, and and what I'm probably going to end up doing is making one without all the doodads and the bibbity baps and the bobbity boops on it, and then put it out there. So he says, "Holy fuck! I know he has issues, but why is always so nice to me." We talk about I don't know. No, I think we were talking about like it was some bullshit. It was like percentage systems for games, or it was something dumb. It was something really, like, I'm not even mad at him. Like, he blasted me, but I'm not even mad at him. It was something dumb, and I think he just got triggered. I think it came along. It's I think he was having a retail anxiety moment. So when a person at a retail store has like five, six, seven, eight bad customers in a row, and you're number nine, and that person blasts you because you're number nine, I think that's what happened. Like I'm not even like I'm literally not even mad at him at all. So yeah. So this is the character sheet, and I got obsessive and started putting the rules into the into the margins in the corners. So now I'm thinking I'm gonna just go whole hog and try to put all the rules and shove them in there, and then make another character sheet and erase all of the rules. So you just have a character sheet, and then you have a character sheet with all the rules and how do you do everything. So this is a hyper close up of the. Am I showing it right? Yeah, it's the hyper close up of the character sheet for Obsidian Star. It's going to be a free RPG, sci-fi post-human RPG that takes place in our own solar system. Um, and I think I'm going to go back to my Forces Flex Fulcrum instead of vector arc access. And Dante will know that the this represents something that we had a conversation about way back when we were doing martial arts together. Um, the force movement and acceptance thing, and so that's kind of where that comes from. So yeah, and you can see right here, like I threw some rules over here where it's like recover. Well, if you use your connections, you get plus 1d12 back, and if you use your conviction, you can get from 1 to 3 points back. That kind of stuff, like little things and little arrows. Whereas here we go, attributes with a big point over here. It's attribute plus approach. Singularity system is a 2d12 roll high, not over system. And then you keep going down here about how you spend your points and in your pockets and what the hell's in your pockets and all that kind of stuff. Um, Over here on the left side, are your pockets full? Your strive equals 0. That kind of stuff. Um, Gear are all your positive traits. Baggage are your negative traits. Baggage bumps gear. And then on this right side, I'm going to put like, well, how do you get baggage? And baggage is the equivalent of like conditions, like blinded, deafened, broken leg, psychological issues like stunned, distracted, I don't know, distraught. There'll be a short list, a very short list, and then you got your value here, you got your bricks, and stuff like that. But yeah, this is a hyper attenuated one, and then here's a full image of it. If I can, it's a little difficult to see it. It looks very busy, and then I'm just gonna make another one and add another page to this, and then delete all the extraneous stuff. Um, I think this black line is too thick. And when I expand it, I have to figure something else out. Anyway, that's enough of that. All right. What do you guys have to say? Yeah. Yeah, the only fallings out with RPG guys I've ever had were with the Gentleman Gamer when he accused Ander of forcible what? Just to force what? I didn't know what. Um, yeah, I remember when AJ Pickett was kicked out of a community for something of similar to that nature. Yeah, I'm glad you weren't mad. I'm sorry you were blasted over something stupid. It was something stupid. I don't even think he remembers, and I don't even know if he remembers me. But whatever. Penguin 23 Penguins 23 blocked me because he hated the libertarian memes I was posting on Facebook. Oh, yeah. I don't hate on people because of their politics and stuff. Drew says, as much as I love drama and fiction, I really don't like to have that in the community. Me too. I'm the same way. I like the design, but the arrows are messing with my head. Yeah, it's kind of sorry there, one eyed. Yeah, I'm gonna make one. I'm gonna make a sheet where the arrows don't where they don't shift all over the place, because the arrows are like, look over here if you want to know something here. Here's what relates back to here. Yeah, it's right. Like strive here relates to your pockets because the number of pockets you have equals what your strive value is, right? So, and you start out, if you follow the arrow backwards, your attributes, you spend 12 points and your attribute total equals your strive. So attribute totals equal strive. So 12 points, 12 strive, 12 pockets. But in character advancement, if you go up to 13, now your strive is 13. Now you have 13 pockets. I know that sounds funky to say that, but yes. Um, I remember. You still have those patches? I sure do. I sure do, D. You used to call it flow instead of fulcrum, but I see what you're doing there. How it looks sweet. Thank you very much. Yeah, still using it. Do I have to declare my baggage at customs? Listen, everybody can see you carrying around all your baggage there, Drew. Shai says, yes, it is a serious detriment how the once glorious brigade fell apart. All the RPG channels suck now. They just talk about rules, monsters, additions, and how much WotC sucks. Yeah, well, you know what? That's the algorithm speaking. The if I talk about how much WotC sucks, I get all the views. If I those are SEOs, right? Search engine optimization things. And I could show you what's given to me by the algorithms to let the channel grow, but I just don't do it because I feel like it's low-hanging fruit. Well, no, to be honest with you, I've done it a couple times. Let's be clear. I'm I'm not pure. I've done a number of thumbnails and things like that that are like optimizationized, but not very often. Yeah, AJ Pickett, he's one of the few good guys left, but let's face it, he's basically just a walking, talking monster manual. It would be better if he talked about his own fantasy settings. I agree, but I bet he's using SEOs. I bet he's using he's doing search engine optimization to get attention because monsters and lore draw lots of attention. Heathen says, I think I don't like the arrows because I'm a linear thinker. Okay, I like things in rows, but I also get how the arrows could be a quick and dirty guide to what stats affect others. That's why I'm going to make one that doesn't have any of it on there, right? Like, so yes, I went down a path and I was like, wait a minute, if I go too far with this, and I said, you know what? Let me just go too far anyway. Vince, hey, hi guys, used to be the admin of the RPG brigade, but only when it had already jumped the shark. Oh, yeah, we should start to talk more about our own games. This is what I call fun. Yeah. Dogpiling WotC is all well and good, but seriously, the real RPG intellectuals are not dependent on any addition, setting, or rule set. They use their imagination to do it all. And to be let's really be honest, is any sometimes we're not honest with ourselves. Is anybody who's playing 5th edition actually playing 5th edition? Right? Or are they playing a heavily modified version of a thing they think is 5th edition? Right? And I'm going to say no. I don't think there's really. I think there's a far fewer people playing pure 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons than people think they are. I think people have been modifying, changing, altering. They've got their own worlds, all that stuff. More than the people who claim that they're doing it rules as written. I'm like, no, you're not, because first of all, you're not using. I can guarantee this: people aren't using encumbrance. People aren't using sustenance rules, meaning like you have to have so many rations. You're not using. You're not building encounters based on the 6 to 8 encounters per day between 8-hour rests, a long rest. But whatever. Vince says, but that's the beauty of it. Of course it is. Yeah, nobody is playing any RPG 100% as the writer intended. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Yep. Yep. But that's the beauty of it. Exactly. And sometimes we don't like to see how the sausage is made, but So anyway, guys, I appreciate this being a place where we can talk about these things, like and have differing not just viewpoints, but how we all arrive to the same location, but we take different paths to get there. And so I'm just glad to have it. Vince says, I kind of like good crunch. I I like crunch that makes me think of the world that it's being used in. So I like myself a good crunchy system that is very emblematic of where what kind of game I'm inside of. So if I play what's a good game? Pendragon is a good one. Um, Legend of Five Rings is a good one that's got some crunch to it, but you're like, oh, this is how this works, right? So, but anyway, we'll get into that. We'll do our America series, that kind of stuff. Guys, I got to get out of here. Got to head off to work. But you guys have a great one. Thank you very much for being part of the show. Your time is very valuable. Thank you very much for spending it here. But if you're getting some value out of it, I hope I'm able to make some change for you in your tabletop role playing game experience. Guys, have a great one. Got to get out of here. You guys have a great one. I'll see you tomorrow, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace and prosperity. Thank you.